did King Saul kill himself or did someone else do it? All right, good question. Did King Saul kill himself or did someone else do it? And the reason for that question is if you look at 1 Samuel, if you turn there, if you have your Bibles with me, 1 Samuel chapter 31. Here we have the account of Saul's death. First Samuel chapter 31. Verse 4. Then Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword, and thrust me through it, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and mistreat me." But his armor-bearer would not, for he feared greatly. Therefore Saul took his own sword and fell upon it. Right, so here we have Saul killed himself. Right, he fell upon his own sword. Now, maybe in most of your Bibles, flip over one page, 2 Samuel chapter 1. 2 Samuel chapter 1. In the very beginning, verse 1, after the death of Saul, when David had returned from striking down the Amalekites, David remained 2 days in Ziklag. And on the third day, behold, a man came from Saul's camp with his clothes torn and dirt on his head. And when he came to David, he fell to the ground and paid homage. David said to him, "Where do you come from?" And he said to him, "I have escaped from the camp of Israel." And David said to him, "How did it go? Tell me." And he answered, "The people fled from battle, and also many of the people had fallen and are dead. And Saul and his son Jonathan are also dead." Then David said to the young man who told him, "How do you know that Saul and his son Jonathan are dead?" And the young man who told him said, "By chance I happened to be on Mount Gilboa, and there was Saul leaning on his spear, and behold, the chariots and the horsemen were close upon him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me. And he called to me, and I answered, 'Here I am.' And he said to me, 'Who are you?' And I answered him, 'I am an Amalekite.' And he said to me, 'Stand beside me and kill me, for anguish has seized me, and yet my life still lingers.' So I stood beside him and killed him, because I was sure that he could not live after he had fallen. And I took the crown that was on his head and the armlet that was on his arm, and I have brought them here to my Lord." Okay, so now we have two separate accounts. We have one that Saul killed himself. We have another account that this Amalekite ended up killing Saul after he had fallen upon his sword. And so the question is, which one is true? Or is there maybe a contradiction between the two? And what I would say is this: the Amalekite is not to be believed. The Amalekite is a liar. I think that's probably the case. That's what we have going on here, for a couple reasons. In verse 5 of 1 Samuel chapter 31, we're told, "And when his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he also fell upon his sword and died with him." Okay, so the armor-bearer waited long enough to see Saul, no more life in him, before he killed himself. Okay? So that this Amalekite, I'm sure, he was there. Maybe he's seen Saul dead upon his sword, which is why he's able to come back and say that. But I think he was expecting a reward, right? He was expecting maybe to be honored by David for being the first one to come back and bring this news. And so that's why he brings it, and he embellishes the story, right? Lies, and says that it was actually him who dealt the last blow. In 2 Samuel chapter 4, verse 10, I think David himself hits on this. 2 Samuel chapter 4, verse 10, "When one told me, 'Behold, Saul is dead,' and thought he was bringing good news, I seized him and killed him at Ziklag, which was the reward I gave him for his news." Okay, so ultimately Saul kills himself. The Amalekite account is a fabrication of the truth. This Amalekite comes to David thinking that he's going to be rewarded for the news that he's bringing them. And in fact, he was rewarded, wasn't he? But it was just not the reward he was looking for. It was death. Okay?